Welcome to Recovery 2.0. This is a discussion about what addiction actually is. A good place to start if you're coming onto this site for the first time or if you've been here for a long time. Let's start with a definition. Addiction is any behavior you continue to do despite the fact that it brings negative consequences into your life. When we think about the kinds of behaviors like that we're most familiar with, we have to talk about the big six. The big six is drugs. So that includes all drugs, illicit, illegal drugs, but also prescription drugs and drugs you would acquire over the counter legally. Then there's alcohol. Alcohol is incredibly celebrated in our society. We find it at births, we find it at deaths, we find it at rites of passage, we find it at sporting events, we find it at social events. We find it just about anywhere people come together, that alcohol plays a prominent role in our society. That's another place where a person can get into trouble. Drugs and alcohol, then you have food. You have food addictions like bulimia, these are eating disorders, bulimia, anorexia. You also have emotional eating, binging, and resulting diseases that come from those addictions, from food-based addictions, are things like obesity, type 2 diabetes, and other chronic diseases, heart disease, high blood pressure, etc. So drugs, alcohol, food addictions. Then you have people addictions. This is relationship disorders such as codependency. I don't know where I end and another person begins. Difficulty with boundaries. As Nikki Myers, my dear friend, would say, codependency is the disease of the lost self. So we've lost ourself, and from that point forward, we're constantly trying to find ourselves in behaviors and substances and in the outside world, trying to make sense of an inner reality that has been fractured. In addition, you have, under people addictions, you have sex addiction. So relationship disorders and then sex addiction. Very painful, by the way, and a lot of shame around sex addiction. To me, in my mind, it's just another place that human beings turn to try to feel better or to try to fill the inner lack, that sense of lack that we have. So drugs, alcohol, food, people. Then your money addictions. Gambling, of course, shopping, compulsive shopping, and constantly being in a state of debt, what we would call debting. So the money-based addictions, also very painful. Misunderstanding of what money is, a misunderstanding of abundance, skewed relationship with the energy that is money and transactional disorders, right? So these are also very painful. Another place that we're looking to try to feel whole unto ourselves, which of course just brings pain and suffering. And then finally, so that's 5, drugs, alcohol, food, people, money, and then you have the big 6th, and that's technology addiction, which every single one of us has to be mindful of these days. Nobody in our society today is above this one. We have to be careful in our relationship with our screens and our technology. Recently there was a poll done at Baylor University where they figured out that teenagers boys are spending about, I think it's 9 hours a day in front of a screen of some kind. For girls, it was 11 hours a day. And I thought to myself, well, my God, if you sleep 8 hours a night, you only have 16 hours in the day. We're spending 9 or 11 hours out of those 16 waking hours in front of a screen. I'm thinking that probably doesn't lead to happiness, contentment, peace, and a state of well-being. So we have to be very careful. We're going to use technology here in the forum of Recovery 2.0. Even here, we need to be careful. Are we using this in some way to avoid ourselves, or are we using technology for what it's supposed to be used for, which is to uplift and to inspire us in our life out in the world? Those are the big 6. We also speak about the 4 aggravations because addiction really extends, into the human experience, into almost every aspect of the human experience, if you take it from my definition. Any behavior you continue to do despite the fact that it brings a negative consequence into your life. So the 4 aggravations are negative thinking, self-doubt, procrastination, and resentment. Now you might say to me, well, Tommy, those are not addictions because I don't crave those things. I don't sit at home thinking about procrastinating. I don't sit at home craving negative thinking or self-doubt. They're conditions of humanity, but one doesn't crave them. Well, this is true. And yet, these are behaviors that we repeat, despite the fact that they bring a negative consequence into our life. Negative thinking draws energy away from us, takes our power away. It brings a total lack of presence into our life because we're stuck in a negative thought pattern and it drags us down. Self-doubt is a negative thought pattern directed towards ourselves. We doubt our ability to do something. We doubt in our presence. We doubt in our connection. We doubt in our radiance. We doubt in our ability to navigate life. And I can't think of anything that would more pull the rug out from underneath somebody than to be in the frequency of self-doubt. Then you have procrastination. If you know anything about my story or you've read the book Recovery 2.0, you know that procrastination was one of the biggest addictions of my childhood, and it led to my decision to engage in other more powerful and detrimental addictions later on in my life. So procrastination, really difficult, really painful. And if you look at it and you break it down, procrastination is simply this: I'm not going to do what I know that I feel I need to do. I'm not going to pay attention to the thing I need to pay attention to. Instead, I'm going to feel very anxious about the fact that I'm not tending to what I need to tend to. And now, because I'm anxious, I need to distract myself through some form of distraction or addiction, simply because I'm not tending to the matter at hand. All we have to do to fight procrastination is to start. One of our teachers, Yogi Bhajan, used to say, start. When time is upon you, start and the pressure will be off. All you have to do is take one step toward your goal and you're now out of the energy of procrastination and you're now moving. You've got some momentum. But if you don't get that momentum and you don't take that first step, you're really stuck. Finally, this brings us to resentment. Carrying a negative feeling about a person or a situation that we feel in the body, like heat or venom or pain or anger. And it keeps us from being able to be present and also from being able to live well. Resentment, a life filled with resentment is not a good life. So on this path of recovery from addiction, as we're now looking at it, we are going to have to address those 4 aggravations as part of the human condition. We're going to use them as indicators that we have some work to do, and we're going to do that work. And we're going to move forward down our path. And so that will give you a broader perspective on addiction, to include all the big 6 and the 4 aggravations. And hopefully, no matter where you find yourself on the spectrum of addiction, you understand that it's a human condition that's not limited to any particular group of people. So everybody is welcome here at Recovery 2.0. Everybody can benefit from the things that we're offering here: yoga and meditation, centering, lowering our stress levels, athletics, nutrition, all the lifestyle habits that lead us forward towards a fuller and happier and more content expression and way of being in life. So that's my answer to what is addiction.